David had dedicated 30 years of his life to serving in the Marine Corps. He was a brave and valiant soldier who had witnessed the horrors of war firsthand. The sense of purpose and camaraderie he experienced in the military was something he deeply missed. Transitioning to civilian life was a struggle for David, compounded by his lack of experience in managing finances. He often found himself struggling to make ends meet, constantly worried about money. Over time, David became increasingly isolated and lonely, finding it difficult to connect with others. He turned to alcohol as a means to cope with his feelings of isolation and stress, which only worsened his situation. This downward spiral eventually led to him losing his housing, for which he had waited 6 years. Now, he was homeless, living on the streets with nothing but the clothes on his back and a few coins he managed to beg for each day. David felt he had hit rock bottom and didn't know how to climb back up. He wandered the familiar streets of his hometown, his thoughts trapped in a loop, repeatedly reliving a particular day from his past. It was the day he lost a teammate during a special operation, a memory he couldn't shake. His mind was like a hamster wheel, constantly spinning. He turned to drinking to escape the pain. As he walked past a row of shops, his attention was drawn to a brightly lit hair salon, a beacon against the gray backdrop of the street. David saw his reflection in the window and stopped abruptly, momentarily stunned by what he saw. The man staring back at him was far from the soldier he once was. His hair was long and unkempt, and his beard had grown to the point of obscuring his features. He had become one of the many homeless veterans wandering the streets, forgotten by society and left to fend for themselves. As he continued to stare at his reflection, a determination began to grow within him. He knew he needed to make a change, to regain his dignity and start anew, but the path ahead was uncertain, and he wondered if he had the strength to face it. Clutching a few coins in his hand, David hesitated outside the hair salon, unsure if he had enough. Summoning the courage to enter, he was met with disdainful looks from the staff. One of them even wrinkled her nose and commented on his smell. Embarrassed, David tried to explain his situation. "Sorry, I know I don't smell good, but do you think you could give me a quick cut?" he said softly. Karen rolled her eyes and shook her head. "Sorry, buddy, we're not a charity here. Try looking for cans in the trash instead," she said, pointing to a nearby dumpster. Feeling humiliated and disheartened, David turned to leave the salon. As he was about to walk out the door, he heard one of the girls laugh and whisper something to her colleague. "What a loser," she said loudly enough for David to hear. "I can't believe he thought we'd let him in here looking like that." The other girls laughed along with her, leaving David feeling even more ashamed. David took a deep breath and tried to hold back his tears as he walked away from the salon. He couldn't help but feel that he no longer belonged in this world. He had given everything for his country, and this was how he was treated. It was a harsh reality he had to face every day. David left without saying anything in response because there was no point in reacting. He was used to it by now. As he stood outside, a young woman approached the salon. Tiffany glanced at David and said, "Nice haircut, sir," thinking he had already had his hair cut. "Thank you," David replied and continued walking. Tiffany looked puzzled. "Sorry, did you just leave our salon? Would you like us to redo your hair?" David stopped and looked at her with a smile on his face for a moment. "Thank you," he said and walked on. "Dear, your friends didn't have time for me," David said, trying not to sound too disappointed. Tiffany found the situation unusual. "Are you available, sir? Come in. I'll fix your hair," she offered. Thankful and feeling obligated to explain what had happened, David recounted everything. "My God, I'm so sorry, sir. I just started my shift. Let me give you a good haircut to make up for it." "I'm full of energy now," Tiffany said. "Sorry, dear. I only have a quarter of the amount in coins. Do you think you could just give me a quick trim?" David replied, "Of course, sir. Come in. I can do the cut if you want, but I think I can offer you something you'll really appreciate," Tiffany insisted, holding the door open for David. As they entered the salon, Karen couldn't help but notice and let out a slight sigh. "Here we go again," she thought to herself. Tiffany noticed Karen's reaction and approached the receptionist with a smile. "Shirley, could you call the lady with the 10 o'clock appointment and ask if she can come at 11:20 instead?" Tiffany asked. "What happened?" Shirley inquired. "Oh, there's a client here," Shirley observed, looking David up and down. "We kicked this guy out before he even got in. What did he say to convince you to do his hair?" Shirley asked. "Calm down, will you?" "My God," Tiffany responded, taking off her coat. "Tiffany, do you know this bum? Why do you care? Is he your father?" Shirley asked mockingly. Tiffany looked up, anger rising within her, but she remembered to control her emotions and not stoop to their level. She sighed and said, "And if he is my father, what then?" David stood there, unsure of what to do. He didn't want to cause trouble or get the police called on him. He just wanted to leave at that moment. Karen emerged from another room and saw David standing there. "What are you doing here?" "I told you to stay away," she exclaimed. Tiffany turned to Karen, a bit surprised. "Hi, Karen. How are you?" she asked, trying to make small talk. Karen forced a smile. "I'm fine, thank you," she replied before going back to her magazine. Sensing the tension in the air, Tiffany decided to simply ignore Karen and focus on her client. The girls continued making nasty comments, and Tiffany tried to argue with them, but it only made things worse. David could see how upset Tiffany was and apologized for causing trouble. "I'm sorry, Tiffany. I'd better go. I don't want to make them uncomfortable." "Thank you very much," he said, standing up to leave. "No, sir. You haven't done anything wrong. These girls need to learn some manners and not judge people by their appearance," Tiffany declared. "You girls are pathetic. I can't believe I work with you," she shouted at them, furious. She grabbed her coat and stormed out the door. "Tiffany, dear, I'm so sorry about what happened," David apologized. "I'll find a way to get a haircut eventually." "No, I'll make sure you get a haircut," Tiffany insisted, determined. They left the salon, and Tiffany offered to take David to her home, where she could give him a proper haircut. After Tiffany finished cutting David's hair, she suggested he take a shower and relax a bit. David hesitated at first, but eventually agreed, grateful for Tiffany's kindness. As he stood under the hot water, he couldn't help but feel emotional at the sensation. "This is amazing," he thought to himself. When he stepped out of the shower, David was surprised by how much better he looked with a fresh haircut and trimmed beard. He stood in front of the mirror for a while, admiring his reflection and feeling a newfound confidence. However, as he continued to look at himself, a wave of sadness washed over him. "This is how I used to look before I became homeless," he thought, his eyes welling up with tears. Tiffany noticed the sudden change in David's mood and approached him with concern. "Hey, are you okay?" she asked softly, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. David wiped away his tears and managed a shy smile. "Yes, I'm fine. It's just that I never realized how much I lost until now," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I understand," Tiffany said empathetically. "But remember, this is just the beginning. You can rebuild your life and have a better future again," she encouraged, giving him a supportive hug. David felt a glimmer of hope in his heart, grateful for Tiffany's encouraging words. "Thank you," he said, feeling a renewed determination to change his life. The two sat together, sharing a cup of coffee as David told Tiffany his story. Tiffany was moved by David's experiences and realized how many people like him might be struggling on the streets. She began to think about how she could use her time and resources to help others in similar situations. She knew she wouldn't return to the salon. She wasn't yet very skilled and was still in her probationary period. Looking at David, an idea suddenly struck her. "Do you know many people who are homeless?" Tiffany asked abruptly. "Yes, I know a few," David replied. Tiffany had the idea to practice her hairstyling skills by offering free haircuts to homeless individuals. As she considered this, she thought it would be nice to have some company and turned to David. "Sir," she said, "I know this is a bit unusual, but would you like to join me in offering haircuts to those in need?" With plenty of time on his hands, David readily agreed. Tiffany and David approached their first client for this new initiative, a homeless man named Richard, who was an old friend of David's. As they approached, Richard was surprised to see Tiffany with David, but he initially didn't recognize David due to his well-groomed appearance. It wasn't common for someone so well-dressed to acknowledge him, let alone start a conversation. "Hey, Richard, how are you?" David greeted warmly. Richard was taken aback. "David, is that really you?" Yes, it's me, buddy. Listen, Tiffany and I are starting a new project, and we thought you might be interested, David explained. Richard looked skeptical. What kind of project? We're offering free haircuts to homeless people in the area, Tiffany interjected. Richard's eyes widened in surprise. Wow, that's really kind of you. Most people just ignore us or avoid us completely. We're not most people, David said with a smile. So, what do you think? Want to give it a try? Richard hesitated for a moment before finally nodding. Sure, why not? I can't remember the last time I had a haircut. Tiffany and David exchanged excited looks as they began setting up their makeshift salon. This was just the beginning of what they hoped would be a meaningful project. As they worked, they discovered something surprising. Many of these people were skilled professionals who had fallen on hard times. They met engineers, chefs, and even a former lawyer. Inspired by the resilience and talent of the people they met, Tiffany began sharing their stories on social media, hoping to raise awareness about homelessness. To her surprise, the posts went viral, and soon people from around the world were donating money to their cause. With these resources, Tiffany and David were able to expand their efforts, offering not only haircuts but also job training, resume writing, and networking opportunities to the homeless individuals they encountered. Determined to help people get back on their feet and reclaim their lives, Tiffany and David made remarkable progress in less than 2 months, thanks to the support of generous donors and their tireless efforts. The work also helped David. He was no longer living on the streets and had found a new sense of purpose. Recognizing David's dedication and hard work, Tiffany offered him a place to stay and assistance with the growing charitable organization. Together, they decided to establish a non-profit dedicated to helping the homeless community. The charity quickly gained momentum, with more volunteers and donations pouring in each day. Tiffany's natural leadership skills and passion made her the perfect spokesperson for the organization, while David took on an administrative role, managing daily operations and ensuring the charity stayed true to its mission of helping people rebuild their lives and make a positive impact on those who had fallen on hard times. Tiffany and David enjoyed a quiet afternoon relaxing on the grass in the park. David had a content smile on his face as he reflected on their work. This kind of work reminds me of my days in the Marines, he said. I love being part of a team, working alongside truly amazing people, David said. Tiffany sat down beside him, looking more subdued than usual. David noticed her expression and grew concerned. Is everything okay, Tiffany? He asked gently. Tiffany took a deep breath, gathering her courage before opening up to David. My father was actually killed when he was in the Navy, she revealed, her soft voice trembling with emotion. David's expression softened as he reached out to comfort her. I'm so sorry, Tiffany. That must have been incredibly difficult for you. Tiffany let the tears well up in her eyes. It was, but talking about it with you really helps. It's not something I usually share. David, understanding the gravity of her revelation, said, I get it. It's not easy to open up about something like that, but I'm here for you. You can always talk to me. Tiffany managed a small smile through her tears, feeling grateful for David's kind words and support. Thank you, David. That means a lot to me. Since her father passed away, Tiffany had been searching for people who had served in the Navy, believing that hearing their stories would bring back fond memories of her father's pride and eventually help her overcome her sadness. What David didn't know was that when Tiffany first heard about him, she immediately recognized he was a former Marine based on his demeanor. Their friendship deepened, strengthened by their shared experiences and their commitment to making a positive impact on the world. They knew that together they could accomplish great things and help many people in need. One day, as Tiffany and David were walking home after work, they passed by the hair salon where David had been refused a haircut. Memories flooded back, and David couldn't help but stop and look at the place. Remember this spot? David asked with a small smile on his face. Of course, Tiffany replied with a smile. It's where everything began. At that moment, Karen came out and saw Tiffany and David standing there. She looked at Tiffany with disdain and addressed David. Is this woman bothering you, sir? Not at all, Karen, David replied with a smile. Actually, Tiffany is the new owner of the salon. Karen's face fell, confusion washing over her features before she realized that the man she had previously kicked out was now standing before her as a well-dressed, confident individual. The realization hit her that the world had shifted significantly since that day. Tiffany, now the proud owner of the salon, had turned it into a place of inclusivity and compassion, embodying the values she and David held dear. Their journey had transformed not only their own lives, but also the lives of countless others who had been touched by their kindness and dedication. The salon was the same one I had bought for Tiffany. Karen felt a wave of shame and regret for her previous behavior toward David and Tiffany. The guilt was evident on her face. Karen hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I apologize for the way I treated you before, sir," she said, then hurried back into the salon, unsure whether she should stay or leave. Tiffany was taken aback by the unexpected turn of events. It turned out that David and some of his colleagues from the charity had been looking for a hair salon that would welcome everyone, regardless of their background or financial situation. They found the owner of the salon struggling and eager to sell. David seized the opportunity and decided to give the salon to Tiffany as a gesture of appreciation for her hard work and dedication. When David shared the news with Tiffany, she was overwhelmed with emotion and couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You bought me a hair salon?" she exclaimed. "Yes, we did," David confirmed with a smile. "Now it's all yours." Tears of joy streamed down Tiffany's face as she hugged David tightly. I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Thank you so much." David patted her back and said, "You deserve it, Tiffany. You've worked so hard, and we wanted to show our appreciation. We hope this helps you achieve your dreams." Tiffany smiled through her tears, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and excitement. She was grateful for the support and encouragement she received from David and the charity workers. As the group stood outside the newly acquired salon, they watched workers put up a new sign that read, "Tiffany's Salon." Tiffany's dream was finally becoming a reality. "I can't believe this is happening," Tiffany said, her voice trembling with emotion. "It's real," David affirmed calmly, "and it's all yours." Tiffany couldn't stop smiling as she walked toward the salon entrance, her heart brimming with excitement. "I want to offer free haircuts to all the homeless people in our community," she declared. "Whenever they need it, no questions asked." The group exchanged glances, all nodding in agreement. "I'm not surprised," David said, smiling. The charity continued to grow, and David finally found a sense of purpose in his life. He had learned to navigate the civilian world, had a place to call home, and found work he loved, helping people in need. David and Tiffany's charity had given hope to the homeless, showing that a little kindness could make a significant difference.